You're locked into the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service today at callrogers.com. Welcome to the NAZSCAR podcast with Nick Pierce. Don't worry, there's no lap traffic or caution flags here. Paul Nazigian and Tim Scarborough are here to bring you the latest on Liberty Flames basketball and mid-major hoops. Now, let's get to it. Here's Nick, Naz, and Scar.
Welcome back into the NAZSCAR podcast. I'm Nick Pierce, and trust that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And today we're going to talk a little Flames men's basketball, as always, here on NAZSCAR, along with Paul Nazigian and Tim Scarborough. Naz and Scar together once again. And we're talking Flames men's hoops. We're talking a little Conference USA here as well today on the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling. NAZSCAR, part of the Liberty Flames podcast family. Guys, welcome back in. Again, hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Scar, I know you had a chance to kind of get out on the town down there in Atlanta, get some good food. I'll start with you. How was the Thanksgiving break?
Oh, Thanksgiving was wonderful. I've been in Atlanta for 10 years now, and I finally got a chance to go to the College Football Hall of Fame. It was a really great time. Saw Michael Vick's jersey. I looked for Tim Scarborough's jersey, but then I remembered I didn't play college football, so I felt good about that not being in there.
You know, you never know. You could probably find some eligibility out there somewhere for yourself to go back and play.
File for NCAA waiver, they will grant it.
Naz, how about you? You hung around Lynchburg like I did, right?
Yeah, too good. I mean, too much food, too much football, too much laying around, permanent indention on my couch. But no, it was really good. Most of the family was in, but yeah, pretty low key, but real nice. Yeah,
we did the pictures with Santa on Black Friday.
Nice.
That was third year for Grayson Matthew, and I'm sure you guys remember doing that. He still hasn't cried. I got to say,
I was just going to ask that.
He's a friendly young man.
That's right.
He is. Yeah. I mean, you know, he's even friendly towards you guys when he sees you. I mean, what's that tell you? I mean, no, it was great. It was a great holiday. Got to watch some basketball as always, too. And you know, the Flames weren't in action over the weekend, but that's actually kind of a good thing right now because one, they get to heal up, rest a little bit. We know they've been nursing some injuries. We talked about that on last week's show, but then also gives us a chance to kind of look at the rest of the league. And we're going to highlight some of the rest of Conference USA here on the show today. And we'll just kind of start right there. I mean, you kind of want to know what you're up against, right? And we know Liberty is going to take on Coppin State here this Saturday. We're going to talk more about that game a little bit later on. Flames are back in Liberty Arena at 5-2 this weekend. It should be heavily favored in that game. Coppin State just lost to West Virginia in Morgantown on Wednesday night. But let's look at Conference USA. Tim, you got a chance to see Kennesaw State play in person the other night down there in Cobb County. Kennesaw State picked number 2 in the preseason poll behind Liberty in the Conference USA standings. Naza, you were checking out a little bit of Sam Houston the other night, a team that looks much improved from last year, although a team that, quite honestly, guys, wasn't that far away. They just lost a bunch of close games. Scar, I'll kind of start with you. I mean, you got to see the Owls at the nest, so to speak. No Adrian Woolley this year. We know he's at Louisville now, but Simeon Cottle's still pretty good. They got a good squad, don't they?
Simeon Cottle, preseason player of the year. And let me tell you, he was everything that you think he would be. He had 28 points the other night. And most of the shot, I think he made almost every 2-point shot. They played Jackson State, so let's not get carried away. Jackson State has lost a lot. Jackson State's a team I cover. I'll probably do a couple of games down there this year. In fact, I know I'm doing at least 2. Covering HBCUs. But it was an interesting battle because both coaches played at Alabama. Antoine Petway and Mo Williams, who used to play for the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron. He's the coach at Jackson State, and Jackson, Mississippi is where he's from. So it was good to see. It was fun, a fun battle. Mark Gottfried was in the building, the former Alabama coach, former North Carolina State coach. He was there to see the 2 guys that he coached with back in the day when they made it to the Elite Eight back in, I believe, 2004. So it was a good environment all the way around. The crowd wasn't what I've seen in the past. Now, I was in there when they played Rutgers. It was on national television. So I don't know if you guys have been to Kennesaw. At the top, they have an area where they can push bleachers in or they can bring them out. And they bring them out for big games. They had the bleachers pushed in, so you could only sit in the lower bowl. And I'd say it was probably about 75% full. So it wasn't that same electric atmosphere that I remember when Darius McGee used to go in there and drop 40 points, and their crowd would literally be cheering for him because he put on such a show. Or that championship game that I got to call with Alan York, that A-Sun championship. It wasn't quite that environment, but Simeon Cottle was everything. I mean, he was just, it couldn't stop him. But they have others, obviously losing Woolley, who was the third leading scorer in this conference. It's big, but to retain Simeon Cottle, to me, preseason CUSA Player of the Year, I think that was bigger than losing Woolley. So they're going to be in the mix, picked second in this league preseason. So, they look pretty darn good the other night.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of the end of that little second half of that one, and again, I wanted to kind of see them with my own eyes. And Scar, like you mentioned, it was nice seeing those guys, both coaches, kind of hug and talk at the end of the game. That was pretty cool. What an experience to kind of coach against a teammate. But I'm looking at them, and it's funny. Teams and coaches have an identity and a style. And it's like they bring in all these bunch of new guys. And again, you mentioned they got Cottle and Lou back and a good core, but you throw in those new guys and you start to see, though, they're young and it's early in the year, but they're starting to play like they like to, with giving guys freedom to attack off the dribble. And then if they miss, they crash the glass. And
they will miss. They shot 37 threes on Tuesday night, and they only made 9 of them.
Yeah,
and 4 of those were by Cottle. So that's their MO.
Yeah,
guys.
And they'll run and try to run them
and
down.
Get it.
Yep.
And they get their fair share.
Good to get a little bit of watching them. And then, for most of yesterday, I kind of switched over and I kind of watched Sam Houston.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Kennesaw State game is 88-73 was the final over Jackson State. They led 46-32 at halftime. Only a 1-point game in the second half, but the Owls clearly too much for Jackson State. So Kennesaw State now 6-2 on the year now, 3-1 in their home venue. And so far, I mean, no real standout wins. They did beat Florida Gulf Coast in a shootout the other day, 102-100. Man, they got some high-scoring games, though. I mean, I'm looking at this. They lost a 108-89 to South Florida, 89-84 with Rice. They got a win there. That was a good win. Kennesaw State, they kind of look like the same old, even without Woolley. You mentioned with Cottle and some of those other playmakers. I think they're going to score a lot of points. Naz, looking at Sam Houston the other night, they lost a tough one to Oklahoma State, 93-83. But, man, they were in the ball game. They led by 7 at halftime, 44-37 score at half. Just too much there in the second half from the Cowboys, who go to 8-0. So not only were they in the ball game with Oklahoma State, it was an unbeaten Oklahoma State. They got a good team up there. Yeah,
they really do. And it's interesting, just to kind of backpedal a little bit. We did the Conference USA pre-show, Matt and myself, and, we're prepping for that. And we mentioned this on the show. It's like all these teams just bringing in just almost an entire new roster, And so we're talking about these names that guys we've never seen yet or play or have come from other conferences. And so it's really interesting now to kind of watch some of these games, and you're putting names to faces. But Sam Houston was one of these teams that just kind of a complete overhaul. And with them specifically, I mean, they lost Lamar Wilkerson, one of the best players in the conference. And he was their total identity. Yes, they had some other good players around him, but it was a huge question mark. And this is in this, we talk about it every week, but in this age of NIL, where guys come and go and you have very little time to kind of prepare and unify, what would it look like? And so watching last night, I'm like, let me watch Sam Houston, because they had one guy, Damon Nicholas, who they brought back, who's a really solid player, great kid, great leader, but everybody else was brand new. And I look at their record and I'm like, okay, I think they were 5-2 going into before last night, had some decent wins, and you're just sort of like, and then you watch them play and I'm like, they're right back, where they need to be. Like they went out and hit the portal and they really played well against Oklahoma State. Again, their kind of style, and they got a big white kid, foreign kid in the post, and some athletes around them, and they're like, you're like, wow, they're giving Oklahoma State a run, and you're like, wow, the Conference USA has reloaded, and it's going to be another really good, tough year.
The thing I like about them, Naz, is the balance, right? They have 5 guys right now averaging double figures. And I know it's early, so it's a small sample size. But I suspect that those 5 that they're depending on to score, and that's not even counting Damon Nicholas, who you said they brought back. But, my guy is Po Boy King.
Yeah.
The transfer from North Carolina Central out of the MEAC. And he's coming in averaging 10.3 right now. And obviously on the all-name team, along with Justin Begg, another guy averaging 10.3. So they've got some names and they've got some players for sure.
Yeah, he's begging for the ball. But no, so you're right, Scar. No, and in all honesty, it's interesting because it's not like 5 guys in double figures and one guy's averaging, 20 off a week non-conference schedule. It's like those guys are 10, 11 against solid competition. So I believe that they can sustain that. So you're right. It is a very balanced attack. Nobody's sort of out of their comfort zone. I believe those guys are playing within themselves, and they did it last night against Oklahoma State. So I believe, they're going to be right there in the mix. And it was nice to see them. And these teams are starting to come together now. Everybody's played around 8, 9 games, and they're starting to form their identities. And like what we're seeing. And I know you guys have watched a little bit of some other people too. And it's like, everybody reloads, and it's going to be a battle all the way to March.
It's interesting with Chris Mudge. He's been there forever now. And, I thought he had a pretty good team last year. They had a couple of injuries, couple defections. They were in almost every game.
Yeah.
You probably feel like, man, if I could just bring a lot of these guys back, it'd probably be a different story, but it just doesn't work that way anymore. You talk about the roster. You have Po Boy. He had 20 points the other night. Illich, the big man you refer to, 6'10", 240-pounder from Serbia. He was a 3-year player off the bench, mostly at Loyola, Maryland. Now he's starting for Sam Houston, averaging about 22 minutes. So he's going to be a load.
57% from the field. So that tells me he's getting his points in the paint and he's cashing it in.
Yeah, for sure. Look what Sam Houston's done so far, 5-3 on the year. Got a loss to a top 10 Texas Tech in there, the loss at Oklahoma State. So they played a couple tough teams, got a win over Wyoming. That might be their best win up to this point. It will be interesting to follow them. I think that they're a team that could be in the mix here. They weren't picked very high in the preseason poll, but for the most part, guys, when you look at the preseason poll, Liberty, Kennesaw State, New Mexico State, Louisiana Tech at 5th. I mean, most of these teams are off to pretty solid starts. Would you agree?
Yeah, and you think about, the preseason polls, sometimes they're way off. But, I think the coaches kind of know. The unknown was Missouri State, so people kind of just put them at the bottom. They didn't get a lot of votes because we don't know. We don't know what they are. But they could end up being a solid, and Delaware too, exactly right. They could end up being a solid Conference USA team. But La Tech's going to be good. La Tech's good every year. Western's going to be good. Middle Tennessee. So you have those staple Conference USA teams that year in and year out always compete for a championship, and then you throw in Kennesaw, who in their second year in Conference USA looks like, I'm telling you, they're good enough to win this thing. They just are. Antoine Petway is one of the better coaches, and he gets the most out of his team. And you think about that Sam Houston team, to me, they're athletic. Like they're with the big in the middle, and then some of those perimeter guys are bigger players as well. So they play like the old Conference USA before realignment. Same with New Mexico State. They're going to be tough. They're going a lot tech. They're going to have guards that can back you in and score late game. They're going to be in your shorts defensively. It's going to be a style of play that lends itself to winning in this league for a few of these teams. It's going to be interesting to see how it starts to play out in January. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, New Mexico, last year they were really solid and just a really tough defense. Like they were actually finished as the best defensive team, Liberty just a little bit behind them. And that's a big staple of theirs is just like you said, Scar, just tough in your shorts D. But this year they've got a guy that one of their guys they got out of the portal, Jamel Jones, and he is lighting it up for them. And so like you couple that tough D, which by stat wise it looks like they're playing that again, and then throw in what they didn't really have last year was a really go-to guy that could fill it up. Yeah, they're going to be right there in the mix too. And another team I want to talk a little bit about is Western Kentucky. And Scar, their history really well. And there's another team that, so they win it 2 years ago, and Hank Plona comes in as first-year head coach, keeps everybody. And they thought, man, let's run it back, guys. But injuries and, it just didn't mesh, for whatever reason, hard to repeat too. It just wasn't their year. And this year, everybody, complete new roster.
Yeah.
And so you're like,
new
what are
coach.
These guys going to look like? Well, they look really good too. They were 5-2, beat Wichita State. Only lost by 5 to Vandy and took South Florida to overtime, which we know South Florida this year is really tough. So it's like there's another team that just sort of was off the radar based on last year. I really expect them to be right there in the mix too. They like to play fast, get a lot of possessions, and by the stats already, that's kind of what they're doing already.
I want to go back to New Mexico State here real quick because they just lost their first game the other night to South Alabama, 77-75, so 2-point game.
Mm-hmm.
But New Mexico State really, they played their first 5 games at home. They did play a couple in Mexico on a neutral site against Irvine. UC Irvine, that's a pretty good win, 57-45 there. Georgia State beat them 77-58.
Beat New Mexico.
Have they been challenged enough in the you look at South Alabama, then they got at Abilene Christian and versus Tulsa, and then they're into conference play. Did they challenge themselves enough in the non-conference?
Maybe not. That New Mexico game is always very intense. We've had fights in that, nationally covered fights in that game. One of the most intense rivalries in any in-state rivalry for sure, for teams at this level. But yeah, obviously that one was one that they had to get up for. But Georgia State is way down. Ron Hunter's not walking through that door. Georgia State is really bad. They're
not
awful.
Sitting on that rolling stool anymore.
Yeah, he's not with the the ACL tear. But no, I think that might come back to haunt them, quite honestly. But this Jamel Jones that you mentioned, he was a National Player of the Year in junior college a couple of seasons ago. So he's the real deal. Like he wasn't preseason anything. He's kind of a new commodity to Conference USA, but I guarantee you he'll be postseason something, maybe Player of the Year. So when you have a guy like that that's coming out, you got a fighting chance to win each and every night.
Yeah, and Nick, you make a really good point about the schedule, and I think, and we know this, like coaches, you see some coaches that go out and get just a hellaciously tough schedule, and they just want to grind their guys and learn through the fire and then get to conference. And other guys realize maybe their teams, maybe they're young, maybe they want to mesh it a little better, and they'll go with a little easier type schedule. They need the guys to get some confidence and get some wins. So it may be a little of that, just to kind of get some wins under their belt, get everybody feeling good. But yeah, I just think, I look at them and just watching a little bit, but looking at their stats, I just really think, they're doing, they are who we think they are. They just are going to get after it, be really tough and physical, and if they can get a couple scores, get some help from they're going to get Jones scoring, but if they get some other guys that contribute, they're going to be, think of our games with them. They've always really been physical wars. So I think, again, they could be right in there as well.
Well, they may be who we thought they were, but I'm not ready to crown them yet. So
don't crown them.
No.
And look, I mean, it's so, you guys know, we talk about this every year. It's so hard to win on the road in Conference USA. I mean, how often do the home teams win? You'd think that maybe it might be good to get out and challenge, but Naz, challenge yourself a little bit. But Naz, you make a good point. Maybe you just want to let those guys gel together at home and get comfortable a little bit too. I don't know. You play both sides of it.
Honestly,
Jason Newton knows his team a whole lot better than I do.
Some of it is you got to play who wants to play you. Naz, you've done the schedule. I've done the schedule. I say this all the time. Making a Division I college basketball schedule was the hardest thing I've ever done. I've been a project manager professionally in corporate America for 25 years. And that was the hardest project I ever tried to manage. And it's not close because nobody wanted to play us. Liberty had won 2 seasons of 20-plus wins. We had Peter Aluma. We had the guards, Marcus White, Larry Jackson. And I always tell this story. I called James Madison and got to speak to Lefty Drizel directly. And he said, "Is that Peter Aluma? Is that big Nigerian still on the team?" I said, "Yeah, he's a junior." He said, "Well, you call me when he graduates. We ain't playing Liberty anymore." So that's what you're dealing with, So you got to play who wants to play you.
Yeah, we go in, me and Scar's wall. We were trying to find games. Looked like that meme with the guy from It's Sunny in Philadelphia, with all the lines going to like these guys will play us in 2 years, and these guys will play us. No. You're exactly right. No, it's you got to play who you can and get in these tournaments. That's why it's been great for Liberty. And as we were kind of getting ready for this show and looking at the conference, the other conference teams did the same thing. They went out and found some really good tournaments with some solid mid majors and some big time schools in them. And everybody's getting ready these last couple weeks here, and Liberty's in that too. They've got a couple more tests coming up to really prime themselves for opening of conference.
Yeah, NC State and Dayton. Those are the remaining non-conference tests for the Flames that are really going to have everyone's eye. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's look ahead to the next game, which is the biggest game because it's the next game, right? Coppin State coming to town on Saturday. That'll be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon affair at Liberty Arena in Lynchburg. It'll be good to see the Flames back in action, like 9 or 10 days since they've last played. Coppin State not having a very good year, 2-9. They lost to West Virginia the other night in a game that was actually competitive at halftime, 40-32. Mountaineers led it. But in the second half, it was a completely different story. West Virginia scores 51 points. Coppin State shot 25%. And that was that. 91-49, the final score. West Virginia beat Coppin State. So, actually, I think ended the game on an 18-2 run. The Mountaineers did. So they really ran away with that thing. So all that to say, Coppin State 2-9. Traditionally not a very good basketball team. Playing a ton of games on the road. They are six or seven true road games, 0-3 in neutral site. They've only played one home game so far. That said, you never overlook anyone, but Flames should be heavily favored. But the one thing I'll say, guys, and Scar, I'll get your take on this first, with Liberty having not played for so many days, any concern about some rust coming out there first thing? Maybe those shots aren't falling early on, might be something that Liberty has to overcome.
No, I don't think so. And I think the reason recent history tells us that Liberty plays against the standard, and that is excellence, right? They come out, regardless of opponent, they may have a subpar MEAC opponent coming into Lynchburg on Saturday, but they haven't played in 9 or 10 days. So if anything, they're coming off of 2 straight losses. I think they're going to be really, really anxious to hit the floor, and you're going to see some intensity on defense, and I think that's going to lead to transition opportunities. And the three-point shot may or may not fall early, but it's going to fall eventually, and I think they'll shoot a high percentage in that game because they're going to get some great looks. My one concern on Saturday would be I think Richie McKay, if you notice, he shortened his bench quite a bit in those 3 games down in Florida. I think, we should see some more depth again, as we saw against FAU and Charleston. And I think that's important, Naz, going into these these last tests and then going into conference play. I think one or two of those guys are going to have to play. I don't think you need to play Matheny and Cleveland and Porter 35 minutes a game.
Yeah, great point, Scar. And that's what I was saying. I think the timing of this game is perfect. Um, the break was nice. The guys, were a little dinged up, and you got a good chance to get the guys healthy, rested. Like you said, a lot of shots and a lot of reps, I'm sure, over the last few days. And yeah, I see him taking the court, just kind of chomping at the bit. But you're right. They need to get those guys back in and get them reacclimated. But it's a perfect game to see what the other guys can do and really get some of the subs some really quality minutes against Division I opposition. And, because again, we saw in the tournament, and there was really 3 tough games, and Coach went with the top 7 a lot, but conference play is a long grind. And so I think the Coppin State game, as well as you got Midway in a couple of weeks, just get some of those guys off the bench, some really good minutes, get them acclimated, get them some confidence, and their time's going to come, as we've seen in conference play with injuries and just the rigor of it. They're going to need set a little deeper bench. So I think it's a perfect warm-up game to really just get everybody primed for the next one. That's a really tough test, as they got to go down to NC State.
I think the toughest test the Flames will see on Saturday is a guy by the name of Demariante Hall. Easy for me to say. 6'7", 235 pounds senior out of Atlanta. He's Coppin State's leading scorer at 10 points a game. They don't have anyone else in double figures, but that could be a guy to deal with a little bit. He plays a forward position at 6'7", so we'll see how the Flames handle that. But I'm with you guys. I think hopefully you see a little bit of a longer bench. Maybe you see some more minutes out of Josh Smith. Again, he's starting to come along. Still don't know when we're going to get Isaiah Enan back. Hopefully sooner rather than later. And you get those two guys at full strength. You got to be careful how you go about it, though. I think they're doing the right thing. You slow play Josh Smith a little bit. You don't rush Isaiah Enan whatsoever. There is no reason to rush him at all. You need him for conference. Ideally, you'd like to maybe get him out there, kind of slow play him like you're doing Josh Smith, get him some minutes.
Maybe a couple games, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see how it progresses for Enan, who, again, is coming off a significant knee injury from last year, and he has a history of those. So they're going to be careful with him. I think all of us want to know, all of us know Liberty's a good basketball team. We all just want to know how good. Some of the stats that speak to it, though. I mean, this is a team that's number 1 in the country right now in effective field goal percentage, number 3 in the country in overall shooting percentage, number 9 in the country in three-point percentage, and number 6 in the country in made threes per game. The scoring defense giving up 66 a game right now. That's not bad. It's maybe a tick higher than what we're used to. Usually that's low 60s, not mid to high 60s for the Flames. So that said, what's the barometer going to be? Is it we're looking ahead to this NC State game next week? We just saw the Flames play 3 pretty good teams down in Kissimmee, right? I mean, Those are kind of like-minded foes, if you will. This NC State game, how much are you going to take away from this in a win or a defeat? This Dayton game, kind of same question. How soon do you guys think we're going to start to figure out just what the ceiling is for this Liberty team?
I don't think we'll know anything until conference play. And here's why. Coppin State, subpar opponent. Midway, extremely subpar opponent. Then you play North Carolina State, who I think obviously ACC, but I'm not saying it because they play in the ACC, because I live in Georgia. I live in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is a mid-major at best. They are terrible. But so just because you play in the ACC doesn't mean you're going to be good. But what I do know is Will Wade can coach his tail off. And I've watched NC State play, and they are going to be tough to beat down there in Raleigh. But more importantly, I think the Dayton game is even tougher. It's an Atlantic 10 team picked second or third, I think third in their league behind VCU and St. Louis. But, I mean, I'm just looking at the teams they've beaten this year. They beat Georgetown in overtime, neutral site. They beat Marquette at Marquette in overtime. Their loss was to number 9 BYU, who has AJ DeBansta, the top player coming out of high school, $8 million NIL deal. So we know what BYU is. And they only lost to them by 4 points, and they hammer East Tennessee. So before they play Liberty, though, they have to play Virginia, North Florida, and Florida State. So maybe some of those teams will soften them up a little bit. But that Dayton game, and you think about this, fellas, the reason the first four every year of the NCAA is in Dayton is because of their fan base. They are basketball junkies in Dayton. If you've ever been to UD Arena and watched a game, it's better than VCU in terms of atmosphere. And I say that with all reverence to VCU. I used to live in Richmond, spent a lot of time in that building. But I'm telling you, there's nothing like Dayton. So that's going to be the most hostile environment Liberty has faced in a long time. So there are going to be two tests. So you really don't play anybody at your level the rest of this non-conference schedule. That's just unfortunately the way it is. But if you actually win at North Carolina State, then we will be saying, Liberty could win this whole thing.
Yeah, for me, I guess just, not getting too far ahead, but with NC State, like the barometer for me is going to be how they perform defensively. We all know that Liberty has the firepower to win the conference, and that's preeminent. That's what's most important. But in this game, I mean, you go down there to a like you said, Will Wade has got that place revitalized, and
Yep.
The fans are back and excited. It's going to be crazy, but they are scoring 94, just under 94 points a game. They're over 50% from the field and 42 from three. Like, they are a scoring machine. And so, again, do we want to go down there and win? Yes. Could we go down there and win? Absolutely. But whatever happens, I want to see the defense go against a really tough opponent, and just, can you, limit threes? Can you, bring that percentage down? Rebounding? Can you really defend? And can you, maybe make it a slower game? Can we win the battle of who's going to kind of control the pace? And I think, again, yes, you want to win, but I think if you can come out of there and really get better defensively and really show what they've been working on. Coming out of that tournament, guys, we had some defensive things that we kind of pointed out in last show that we need to clean up, and I know they've been working on it. And so that's what I really want to see. I want to see them, play well, play hard, win if we can, but you got to get that defense primed again for Dayton.
Agreed.
And then for conference, which is right around the corner.
Agreed. Yep. I agree.
And then you look at some of the personnel for NC State as well. I mean, Will Wade did yeoman's work in the transfer portal, bringing in a Darian Williams, averaging almost 19 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Copeland came over with him from McNeese. He's actually averaging almost 14 a game right now, a guy that I don't think was in double figures last year. McNeil, another guard at 14. They got 5 guys in double figures.
Yep.
So it's, like you said, Naz, that defense is going to get challenged for the Flames coming up next Wednesday night in Raleigh. NC State 5-2 on the year. I'll be at that game. I'm gonna try to make my way down there. That should be fun. Like I said, first time for me in the Lenovo Center in a year since that Mariah Carey Christmas concert. So a little bit of a different vibe coming up next week, though.
That's right.
No, but we're looking forward to it. The arena coming up here this Saturday. Naz, you got the call on that game, right?
Yes. Yep. 2:00.
Yeah, 2:00, Liberty Arena, Liberty and Coppin State. Paul Nazigian will be on ESPN Plus with the call. Of course, our good friend of the show, Alan York, will be on the radio, Liberty Flame Sports Network from Bam Wagner, with a play-by-play story for you there as well. And, looking forward to seeing what the Flames have coming up here this weekend. I think, like you guys hit on, you watch for some guys coming off the bench, see how much more we get there, we see from them, and see if this team can come out rested and dominate someone that they should, and hopefully get a little bit of momentum going into that NC State game the following week. So see how it plays out, but that's what's next on the docket. Appreciate all of you stopping by the show here this week, the NAZSCAR podcast. Hopefully said something that made you a little smarter as far as Conference USA basketball goes here this week. We try, that's our goal, right, guys?
That's right.
We try to educate and entertain.
Educate and entertain. There, the 2 E's. We need a third E though. That you can't. It's like a pastor. You always have a 3-point sermon, right? You need a third E. We get educate, entertain,
engage. We want to engage the fan.
Engage, entertain, educate. The NASCAR podcast. That should be the new Twitter GIF or whatever. For Paul Nazigian, for Tim Scarborough, I'm Nick Pierce. This has been the NASCAR podcast, part of the Liberty Flames podcast family. Liberty Flames podcast is presented by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service at callrogers.com. Till next week, I'm Nick Pierce. For the guys, thanks so much for stopping by. So long, everybody.